All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live and streaming on YouTube. There we go. Thank you very much. Well done, guys. All right, so good evening. And I would like to welcome everyone, members and officers to this cabinet meeting, and also welcome anyone that's watching us online tonight. Before the meeting starts, I'd like to invite the committee member and scrutiny officer to take attendance of officers attending virtually and to explain how the proceedings will work.
Good evening. Can I confirm the following officers joining remotely can hear us and that we can hear them? Chloe Gray?
Yes, present.
Andrew Figgis?
Yes, present.
Lee Griffiths?
Yes, present.
Sarah Kingsley?
Evening, present.
Jeanette Loden?
Yes, present.
Louise Overton?
Yes, present.
Debbie Coates?
Yes, present.
Ian Fullstone?
Good evening, present.
And Anthony Roach?
Yes, good evening, present.
Are there any other officers in attendance remotely tonight that I haven't called out? If a member wishes to speak, they should use the speak button located on the microphone unit. The microphone will light up green and the chair will be alerted of your request to speak. When the chair invites you to speak, your microphone will be made live and will turn red, at which point you can speak. When requested to vote, voting will be via the yes, no, abstain buttons on your microphone unit. Details of how members voted will be shown on the screens around the room and the results will be visible on the YouTube stream. Are there any questions? I will now hand back to the chair.
Great. Thank you very much. Right. So first item is apologies for absence. I have received none, and I can see that all of our cabinet members are in attendance this evening. Item number 2, we have the minutes from our meetings of the 16th of January and the 6th of February 2024. I'd like to propose that we take both of these as read and approve as a true record of the minutes of the meetings cabinet held on the 16th of January and the 6th of February 24. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Brown.
Happy to second, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any comments from colleagues? No? Right. Can we move to a vote, please? Oh.
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you very much. Item number 3 is notification of other business. I have received none. Item number 4 is Chair's announcements. In accordance with council policy, this meeting is being recorded. The recordings will be available on both the council's YouTube channel as well as the council's ModGov site alongside the documents from the meeting. Members are reminded that the council has declared both a climate emergency and an ecological emergency. These are serious decisions and mean that, as this is an emergency, all of us, members and officers, have that in mind as we carry out our various roles and tasks for the benefit of our district. More details are included on the agenda front sheet. Members are also reminded to make declarations of interest before an item, and a detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under the Chair's announcements on the main agenda. And for the purposes of clarification, 4.8.23a of the Constitution does not apply to this meeting. Therefore, you may leave the room during the debate and consideration of an item and still be able to vote on that item. However, please be mindful of the business on the agenda and wherever possible, leave at an appropriate point in the proceedings. Right, public participation. We have none this evening. There's a number of other items that have been referred to us from overview and scrutiny and finance audit and risk. I will be taking each of those items along before the main agenda item that it relates to. That brings us neatly onto item number 7, which is the adoption of a new housing strategy for 2024 to 2029. Councillor Prendergast to present.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the housing strategy for the next 5 years, which sets out our housing priorities. I'll keep it relatively brief, as I think my foreword summarises the strategy nicely. But firstly, I just want to thank all the officers involved in this excellent piece of work. Thank you for your hard work and diligence on this. The first thing really I just want to point out is, as you can see from the strategy, the public are overwhelmingly in support of our priorities, which shows that we are of the same mind of the vast majority of our residents, which is excellent to see. I'm just going to highlight some of the key takeaways from the strategy as I see it. We remember from the last cabinet meeting, or perhaps the one before, dealing with empty homes is a key addition to this strategy. And thank you to the cabinet for supporting that, as this will be vital in bringing back much needed housing back into use. Continuing our support for victims of domestic abuse. I'm proud that we continue to support the most vulnerable in our society. Having strong relationships with our key partners to achieve successful housing outcomes for people facing multiple disadvantaged needs. Obviously, this is still a significant challenge that we need to do even more work on, and we will be prioritising that as we move forward. Enforcing housing standards. It's an opportunity for me to inform Cabinet that we will be doing a soft launch of a tenants charter, which feeds in nicely to enforcing housing standards. This will be due out soon, and it will be able to provide residents to fully understand their rights and responsibilities. So this is another bit of work that's on the horizon, which feeds into that area. And also something I'm absolutely passionate about is ensuring we do all we can to ensure the maximum levels of affordable housing, which our local plan does in part by ensuring that we provide up to 40% affordable housing, but also working with our registered providers to make sure that we maximise affordable housing throughout our district. So these are some of the key takeaways, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor Prendergast. Does anyone have any questions for Sean? Yes, Councillor Albert.
I think it's a really great piece of work. I guess the question, Sean, is around we're getting funding for our homeless and rough sleeping strategy. I mean, how do you think our strategy and what you see as and we as a council see as that what is clearly a growing demand is going to shape, particularly in terms of what money might be needed to help support that strategy. What government money we do receive is welcome, but clearly the demand is growing, not just in this district but across the country. So I'm interested to see what you think how the strategy will be able to, I think, help and hopefully maybe in even reducing our number of people who are homeless and rough sleeping.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Albert. Yeah, the challenges are significant, and it really goes to highlight how local government is so desperately in need of funding, particularly to face these challenges, because this is not just an issue in our district, but throughout the country. So there are significant challenges. We have an excellent housing team, and we've had various meetings about homelessness prevention at the forefront of that strategy. And a lot of that will be having even better working relationships with our registered providers. Our relationships are already good, but they can be even better. So we'll be prioritising that to prevent homelessness at its earliest stage. But going back to the original point, funding is going to be absolutely crucial. And central government are going to have to provide those adequate funds for local authorities to be able to provide that support in an area that's only going to get worse.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm not seeing anybody else indicate with questions or wishing to speak. So, Councillor Prendergast, can I boldly assume that you are proposing the recommendations in this report?
You certainly can, Chair. Thank you.
Lovely. And could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Willoughby. Great. So do we have any debate on this item? Councillor Willoughby.
I just wanted to comment as I've seconded. I think this is an incredible piece of work. I commend the executive member and the whole team on that work. I think we've passed a health intervention motion. This is obviously a vital piece of that work as well. So I think there's an incredible cross working that could be done now going forward. And I think it's really, really great.
Very good. Right, Councillor Brown.
Yes, likewise, I think this is an excellent piece of work and sits alongside the empty home strategy really well. Looking forward to the tenants charter as well and seeing that launched. We have a government that's still failing to ban no fault evictions, which is a very sad state of affairs. And I notice that in this report, there's not much mention of asylum seekers, but there is something under the section about supporting people facing multiple disadvantage. But we are faced with local people on a housing list, but also the possibility of people being made homeless through the asylum system, not a proper pipeline and a proper provision for that. And I think, I would love to see the government provide more money to councils to deal with the needs of particularly temporary accommodation. But I just wanted to commend the housing team. I found in casework that I've done, they have been so helpful, and I think they've worked really, really well. And I really love to see the emphasis on prevention. I think that's a really, really good emphasis that we have in this strategy. So thank you to the whole housing team and to Sean as exec member and his deputy too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think as well, the stakeholder map that's set out at Annex 1 to the strategy really shows the amount of hard work that our officers do, linking in with partners and taking a genuine multi-agency approach to tackling the issues in this space. And I think it's very much to the team's commendation that they've built such strong and effective partnerships, and we've got a robust strategy that, if colleagues agree, we can move forwards with and hopefully support a large number of people across our communities going forward. So I'm not seeing anybody else indicating to speak. The item's been proposed and seconded. Could we have a vote, please?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Great. That brings us on to item number 8, which is the expansion of the soft plastics collection trial. Councillor Amy Allen to present.
Thank you, Chair. This report seeks authority for the expansion of curbside collections of soft plastics. A small trial has been running under delegated authority in Nebworth since November 2023, providing approximately 2,000 households with fortnightly soft plastics collections. These residents have had the opportunity to recycle this additional material at the curbside rather than seek externally provided drop-off points, for example, at supermarkets. The Cabinet in October 2022 agreed to the introduction of soft plastics as part of mixed dry recycling collections from 2025. This is a relatively unknown material in terms of collection methodology. Resident participation and processing capabilities and trialling collections in our district is a useful way for us to prepare for whole district collections in 2025. The Flexible Plastic Funds FlexCollects trial that's a tongue twister, is a fully funded trial, and we are seeking therefore to expand the service to a total of approximately 6,250 properties in North Herts, giving them the opportunity to recycle more and us useful data to inform our future services and procurements. Any questions?
Right, thank you very much. Any questions for Councillor Allen? Councillor Brown.
Thank you very much. And it's obviously been really successful, the trial in Nebworth, and it's great that it's funded as well. The plan for the expansion, I understand it was originally Baldock, but that might not be the case anymore. Are you able to comment any more on that?
You're right. It was Baldock was a consideration, but then we realised that would be not ideal. We're looking to move to Royston, and I can pass over to Jeanette Loudon, who's online, to go into a little bit more detail as to why that's the case, or possibly Louise. I might be wrong. I'm so sorry, ladies.
No, that's fine, Councillor Allen. I can come in on this point here. Good afternoon. So yes, unfortunately, we did originally look at Baldock, but due to the logistics of the collection days and working in line with our processor, so that's Pierce Recycling based at St Albans, we was trying to limit the number of processing days in order to keep the costs down overall for the actual overall service and the trial. So due to that, we had to revisit the collection points that we were originally considering. So unfortunately, at that point, we did have to move away from the Baldock area and reconsider areas in the Royston and some of the villages in the outer Royston area, along with Ashwell and Bygrave. It was to do also as well, part of the funding, they have to make sure they've got the correct demographical capture as well. So we had to work with them to get some more of the rural areas involved into the trial to increase the capture and the data capture for the analysis. So apologies if we did upset anybody in Baldock that was expecting to participate within the trial.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. Right, does anyone else have any questions for Councillor Allen on this report? Yes, Councillor Albert.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just interested to know, and I was looking at the paper around the communications plan. Because that clearly, I guess, is key to making sure that residents understand what they're supposed to do and so on. What have we found? Have we had sort of feedback from residents, or indeed our sort of the local members there, of what's worked well in Knebworth in terms of the communications? What sort of communications people have liked, whether it's through leaflets through the door or it's websites, social media, and so on. And just so we understand as to how what lessons we might want to learn for the future in terms of that wider rollout.
Yep, so part of the communications, what we did do is there was an initial flyer that was posted out to residents, informing them about the trial and what was involved in it. There was then a hand delivery of a leaflet along with a pack of sacks for residents to participate within the trial. We did do a soft comms, because obviously it was a small area of capture in the initial trial area. So we didn't want to put it out too far and wide. And we also contacted the local parishes or parish and ward of Knebworth to try and get involvement with the residents and from the parish council there as well. What we are doing this week is an additional leaflet. So it's what we're calling a nudge leaflet, which will be going out from today over the next couple of days, along with another pack of sacks for residents for them to be able to continue with the trial. So initial feedback from residents has all been positive. Our project manager that works in the team on our procurement at the moment, he actually lives in that area, and it's been quite noticeable the amount of reduction of material contained within his bin. So we've seen extra capacity in his normal general refuse bin. The crews have found it quite an easy process for them, especially now. We were originally tipping directly to our MRF processor in St Albans, but due to the trial and the next phase within the trial, we've looked at tipping at Buntingford, which is where we have our transfer station within the shared waste services, and that has then been bulked and delivered over to Pierce the following day. So that's made it even easier for the crews to be able to do that. So there's been, quite a low impact for the crews carrying out the collections. But residents themselves, we've had quite positive. We've had people contacting us already to get some additional bags because they've already run out and they want to continue using and being involved within the scheme overall. So it's been quite positive.
Thank you. I've got a small question. Sorry, the potentially a little bit technical, and I appreciate that it might not be possible to answer it fully tonight. But the report notes towards the end, I can't remember. There we go. Paragraph 10.5. The bags that we're using cost £53 per 1,000. And Jeanette, you've just said that some residents are already running out of those bags. This is clearly a fully funded trial at the moment by DEFRA. and other partners up until 2025. Our contract starts with soft plastic collections in 2025. So what's the ongoing cost going to be roughly to this authority of making the changes that were required to bring in no later than 2027? And are there alternate means of collecting the material that would be lower or nil cost?
Yeah, so as you said, it's fully funded currently at the moment until 2025. So hopefully that will bring us up to when we implement our new service change, which is in 2025 and will include soft plastics collected from the curbside. So part of this trial was to look at the different collection options and the processing options. So as you said, the government legislation is to introduce soft plastics from 2027, but we've made the decision to implement it early in 2025 because it makes sense with us having the new contract starting from that time period. So we're working currently, which is why it's really important and really good for us to be involved in this trial. We're currently working with our current processor on the different options of the processing. So we currently are using the bags as part of the next phase that we'll be moving into shortly. We'll be working with our processor and we'll be looking at putting plastics loose through the MRF to see how that gets processed through, what works, what doesn't work. And then that will hopefully build up a picture for us to make some final decisions on our service design for our 2025 contract.
Great, thank you, Jen. Does anyone else have any further questions? Nope, I'm seeing no one indicate. Councillor Allen, I assume you're proposing. And can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Brown. Well, you were twitching, so thank you very much. Right, and any debate, colleagues? No. Virtually uncontentious waste issue. Well done. I think the only sort of point to raise, I guess, is I think it's brilliant that we're engaged in the trial, and once again, local government is innovating, and we're going to be moving forward, hopefully in 2025, earlier than the government requires local authorities to make this change. And I think it's really good that we're looking at and considering the different options, and clearly we will come up with a cost base in the not too distant future once we've worked through what options are going to be viable, what we might be proceeding with. And I would assume, hopefully, that the government and DEFRA, should this impose a new burden on councils, will of course consider any new burdens funding, and will look at the sector as a whole and not use new burdens funding to stifle innovation as it has done in other areas, in particular around food waste collections. That's my bit of rubbish. Thank you very much for indulging me, everyone. Nobody else is ready to speak. Good. Right. Pun tally for tonight. 1. Good. Right. Proposed, seconded. Could we move to a vote, please?
Yeah, that motion is carried.
Thank you very much. And item number 10 is the Strategic Planning Matters Report presented by Councillor Brown.
Oh, well, we've got 9.
Oh, you do have a 9. Oh, you're very correct. Sorry. We could do that. So item number 9, colleagues, is the Shared Prosperity Fund process, which is Councillor Hoskins.
Thank you very much. I know I'm normally quite quiet, so glad that I'm not overlooked. This report sets out the recommendations for the allocation of the remaining sums available in the Shared Prosperity Fund and the process for delegated approval of any of the proposals. It's all there before you. I have both Andrew Figgis and Chloe Gray are in attendance on Zoom to answer any detailed questions. I'm particularly pleased to see the allocation under 8.1 item B, parishes and community projects, 210,000. This is, I think, a great project, and we will be encouraging certainly parish councils to look at this and make applications should this go through. So that's particularly pleasing that we're getting out into those areas as well for parish and community projects. But other than that, I will certainly move the recommendations.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Councillor Hoskins? No? Okay, great. So Councillor Hoskins has moved the recommendations. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Willoughby. Thank you. And is there any debate or discussion? Yes, Councillor Willoughby.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very happy to second this. I think, well, as well as all the other opportunities provided through this funding, as mentioned previously, we will be working towards health and interventions, and the additional funding will allow us to continue and expand some of that fantastic work. And that includes things like food education for families experiencing food poverty, wellbeing groups for those experiencing social isolation, and much more. We also completed our community investment fund grant scheme this year, which allowed to give us to give £100,000 to community groups across the district to do more in the district. And some of this UKSBF funding will allow us to work with our parish and town councils, as Councillor Hoskins has said, and community groups to fund exciting new projects that will benefit our communities and districts massively. And both of these things can only be helped through town centre improvements that make our communities that much better to live and work in. I massively support this.
Thank you very much. I have Councillor Brown next.
Thank you. And thank you, Keith, for highlighting the parish contribution. As a member of Royston Town Council, I've seen this at first hand. We've already had some signposts repainted, some benches repaired. And it does, as Councillor Willoughby said, it improves the environment in the town centre. And we know that this is very important to people's well-being, that our town centres look clean and tidy and well cared for, makes a massive difference to our local residents. They can take pride in their town. And we are currently discussing on Royston Town Council. We've had a couple of meetings where we've talked about what we might do next. So I just welcome this, particularly the contribution to parishes. Thank you so much, and happy to support this report.
Thank you. Councillor Albert.
Thanks, Chair. And yeah, and of course, absolutely to support the report. A couple of comments and one possible amendment. I mean, I think the comments are around. I think what we do here, I think, is great. My impression is, and I mean, Keith and Andrew and Chloe may have a different view. Is I'm not sure that we always shout about enough about what we do with the money, and making sure that our members know, residents know, businesses sort of know. And I think it's, you know, I'm not saying it should be badged or something, but I mean, I think it's important that we actually are saying this is the kind of things that we are setting, and the sort of parameters we're setting, and the things that the way we've used the money over the course of the last period in the way that the Ruth has just sort of set out, and that's true of other towns and villages across our district. So I think the importance here, and I'm, you know, perhaps kind of Keith can kind of take them sort of message back, you know, that I think we really just think about how our communication strategy in relation to this. The second thing is sort of, Chair, I think is around it's on what, page 146. I mean, I was very keen at the, as it mentions here, on the political liaison board, about that we actually have the district panel sort of recreated, continue, and so on, to consider the applications in the first instance. I think it's really important that members across the district can provide that input, and indeed we've got a revised potential terms of reference for the panel at the rear of the document. So I agree with that starred paragraph, the one that comes just above C, the solar for business scheme. What I do think, though, is can we make that clearer in the what I think is 2.3, And I haven't got precisely a suggested amendment word, Chair, but I think that what we actually want to say here is we delegate approval of individual grants and payments under the fund to the panel in the first instance, and then to the relevant executive members. I think it's important to say in 2.3 that we actually want the panel, and I hope Cabinet will agree that we do want the panel to consider these parish and community applications in the first instance, and then clearly, obviously, it goes to the executive member for final approval, as we've done with the with the grants that Alistair has mentioned in this year. So I wondered whether we could kind of amend a bit to 2.3 to make sure there's a reference to the panel in there, as it's obviously already included in that starred section in the parish and community group schemes in that paragraph right at the end.
Okay, thank you very much for that. While I'm sort of having a quick look at this, I think Councillor Willoughby was coming in response to that point. So I'll take Councillor Willoughby and we'll deal with this, and then I'll come to Councillor Jarvis.
As Councillor Albert makes the point, we did talk about that political liaison board. I think that was strongly supported. Certainly, I supported that. I think if we're going to amend the recommendation 2.3, then possibly what we could make it is delegate approvals of individual grants and payments under the fund to the relevant executive members and service directors in consultation with the panel, which I believe is being renamed. So I'm not going to try and remember what its renamed approach is. But I mean, if Councillor Abbott's happy with that, I'm happy to support that as well. And I believe Councillor Hoskins has just made some very positive noises also.
Good. And yeah, could I suggest that I don't want to draft by committee, but maybe after consideration by the panel, so it delegates to the executive and service direct after consideration by the panel.
Chair, can I come in, please?
You may, yes.
Thank you. Just picking up on Councillor Albert's point about the difficulty of drafting by committee and also drafting on the fly. The problem with the suggestion that's just been made is it makes the recommendation sound as if all of those different elements have to go before the panel, whereas it's only one of the elements. It's only the Parish and Community Projects Fund that is going before the panel. And there are 6 different projects listed in table 8.1, 5 of which will not be going to the panel. So we need to be really careful with the drafting here. So if you could give me a moment, I'll try and come up with something and send that through. But we just need to be slightly careful that we're not creating an unintended consequence.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And the Deputy Monitoring Officer is also typing furiously as well. So what we will do to pad for time is pass over to Councillor Jarvis.
I wasn't going to talk about that at all, but I didn't talk for great length about several other things you want me to.
Excellent.
I mean, as everyone has said, that there are some really good things in here. The one I was just particularly going to mention, as you may expect, is the Solar for Business project, which is something we've been trying to get off the ground for several years. It has the potential to generate some income for the council, to provide some benefit to local businesses, and to save some carbon. And we know that West Suffolk Council has done this for some time, and there is no reason to suppose that we shouldn't be able to do it as successfully as they are. So I'm pleased that this is helping us to get a pilot underway. It's something that I hope we may manage to grow well beyond the pilot, because then we will generate more income for the council, save more carbon, and provide more benefit for more local businesses. I think it's worth mentioning that these are not retail businesses. These are small, probably manufacturing businesses in premises that have big roofs, which make it cost effective to do this. Have I talked for long enough yet? Have we got any words, or should I carry on a bit longer? Okay, what else can I say about solar for business? I think I probably said everything I wanted to say about it, really, but I think it's a great example of something that has many different benefits, and I'm really pleased we've found a way to get it going.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jarvis. I absolutely agree. Councillor Brown.
Just to add on to what Councillor Jarvis said, absolutely agree. It's a great scheme. And one of the things that residents constantly ask me about is why are there no solar panels on all those businesses on the industrial area, whatever. So I think the opportunity to offer that is a good one. I understand it will be a very few. Initially, it will be a few places, so it won't be universal. I think also the CPRE, I think, have been calling for this sort of thing for a while too. So yes, it meets a lot of objectives. So I think it's a really good scheme. Thank you.
Right, very good. Does anyone have any further points of debate on this that they want to raise before I go back to the Deputy Monitoring Officer and Chief Managing Director for suggested recommendations? I think the only other point to add on this is that I think it's brilliant how agile and quickly our officers have worked to come up with ways that we can utilise this funding to support our local communities. However, it does take a lot of time and a lot of resource to come up with those projects. And when you've got a time limited fund that has to be spent within a set period of time, it doesn't necessarily lead itself to smart investment or the best possible use of our officer resource. And again, I think this fund, as beneficial as it has been and it will be with the projects that we've managed to come up with to deliver for our communities, it's such a great shame that central government has no will or desire under the current administration to fund and support local government properly. Because if we can turn out these brilliant innovative schemes when we are forced to this quickly, just imagine what we could do if we actually had a proper multi-year funding settlement with the time to consider and plan effective policy interventions, working with communities rather than constantly having to be reactive or going to government with a begging bowl or stressing officers out by being the fastest finger first to secure funding for various projects. In particular, on that point, the Public Sector Decarbonisation Fund seems to me to be particularly unfair. Right, I have a suggestion of some wording that has come through. I think, Anthony, do you want to explain the suggestion and how we've arrived at that for members, please?
Okay, so Isabel and I have been messaging each other with suggested options. She's come up with one that might work. I've come up with a slightly different. So I'll put forward mine, which is to add some words onto the end of recommendation 2.4. Because obviously 2.4 currently talks about the panel and the terms of reference. So if we add on to the end of that, and confirms that the parishes and community projects fund decisions will be taken following consultation with the panel.
Okay, what do members think of that? Councillor Albert.
I still believe that it should be after consideration by the panel, because I think that's what the panel does. It considers them, makes a recommendation, and then the executive member and whatever makes the final decision. But I think it should be after consideration rather than in consultation.
I'm content with consideration. The key point is they're not the final decision maker. So as long as we're all clear on that, I think that's fine.
Okay, so changing consultation to consideration. Councillor Brown.
Just wonder whether the word recommendation might be good, because I know that's the word we use for area forums. They recommend the grants for approval to the relevant cabinet member or whatever. So I wonder whether, yeah, consultation, but they make recommend the the panel makes recommendations.
So if I take that, would that then be reading and confirms that the parishes and community projects fund decisions will be taken following consideration and recommendations by the panel, from the panel?
Of the recommendation.
Consideration of the recommend, something like that. Okay, very, very, very legally certain. Thank you. Councillor Willoughby.
Just before we go through that, I want to just explore whether there is a possibility there might be any projects that may happen without going to the panel. I know how difficult it has been to get the panel together previously, whether there is anything that we might want to be, I think, to borrow the word that you used earlier, agile enough to be able to jump on, that we might not be able to get a panel together quickly enough for. Whether there is, that's the only reason I would potentially question when we are able to do that.
No, I disagree with that. And the reason why I disagree with that is because we've got a panel. We're also increasing the quorum of it, and I think it's really important for actually the group leaders to make sure after the elections we actually do get people to turn up at these meetings, because it is a requirement of them, if they're appointed to that panel, to make every effort to turn up at the meeting. And if 5 of the 10 of them can't do it, I have to say that's pretty disappointing, and we should be able to do that reasonably quickly.
Members and future councillors have now been told your register has been marked, you will be attending meetings. I don't see why we need to remind people of that, to be honest, but apparently we do. Right, so I think the suggestion then, colleagues, is that we amend recommendation 2.4 so that it now reads, approves the updated cabinet, oh wait, is that right? Yes, it is. Approves the updated cabinet capital and revenue grants panel's terms of reference, Appendix C, and confirms that the parishes and community projects fund decisions will be taken following consideration and recommendation by the panel. Yep. Anthony has his hand up, I've been informed. Anthony.
Thank you, Chair. Just to come back on Councillor Willoughby's point, I think the answer will be that we will need to set some deadlines for receiving applications and time those with when the panel is sitting. So that's how we will manage the process, rather than sort of having to try and do anything without the panel.
Thank you. And I think off the back of that, there's a note to group leaders to make sure that when we are appointing members to the panel, they are aware that they might need to be more flexible and attend ad hoc meetings. So I think we can work with that and provide the support to make sure that things are effective. So I've had an amendment proposed. Can I have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Albert.
Happy to second.
Thank you very much. Any debate? Any further debate on the amendment? Nope. Okay. Are we content to accept that then as amended, and we can vote on all of the recommendations in one go? Yep. Can I have a vote, please, James?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you very much. And now I will move us on to agenda item number 10, which is the Strategic Planning Matters Report. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is for noting, and it's essentially to bring the Cabinet up to date with some key things in the strategic things for in the planning portfolio area. So I just want to, you've got the report in front of you, but I just want to highlight a few things. So under 8.10, we've got some details about the proposed expansion of Luton Airport. So you will have seen the comms that went out. We issued some joint comms with Herts County Council and a quorum, which confirmed our strong objection to the proposal to expand Luton Airport on a number of grounds. Principally noise, air quality, surface access, and climate change. And I think that was helpful that we spoke as one voice. I would also like to commend to you our officers' work, that should this be approved, obviously it's not within our gift to decide whether it's approved or not, as it's a nationally significant infrastructure project. But under 8.13, you will notice that our officers have worked very hard to get the best mitigation possible should it be approved. And I want to commend them for that. And particularly the Sustainable Travel Fund was going to be capped, but now it will, if the scheme goes ahead, it would exist in perpetuity. So the car parking income would help to support sustainable travel. And there's also a community fund, but you can read the details. So I think should it go ahead, which would be, in my view, regrettable, we would have some benefit from it at least. So that was Luton Airport. The second thing I wanted to draw attention to is the supplementary planning documents, of which there are 3. We already have one adopted, which is the developer contributions. The sustainability one, unfortunately, has been delayed. There were some detailed representations which came in towards the deadline, or the closing deadline, which require further work. And there's also some more changes to some regulations that need to be incorporated. So we're allowing a little bit of extra time to work through those and to produce the final report, which will come to Cabinet later this year for approval. The biodiversity supplementary planning document, we have decided to shelve that on the grounds that there have been a lot of changes at national level, and nationally specific guidelines and regulations. And in light of those, we don't think a North Hart specific one is needed any longer. And the design code one is being prepared, and it will be prepared alongside the adopted local plan, but also will form part of the review of the local plan going forward. So that's a bit of an update on those. Then the neighbourhood plans, I have a verbal update for you. The referendum was on the 14th of March. So this report was written prior to that, but I can now report that both were approved. So the Ickleford neighbourhood plan, there was a 91.8% yes on a 25% turnout. And the Wallington one, there was an 87.3% yes on a 68% turnout. Bearing in mind, Wallington is a much smaller place than Ickleford. So those plans will now be made as the term is, and they will then form part of material planning considerations for anything in those areas, any applications that come forward in those areas. And then finally, I just wanted to draw your attention to the solar farm. There's an update on that. So the first one that's listed under 8.46, land to east of Great Wymondley. This one was approved by our planning committee in November 22. And shortly afterwards, we received a holding letter from the Secretary of State. Then we waited another 6 months before the Secretary of State decided to call it in May 2023. There was then an inquiry and some hearings, and those took place in the autumn of last year, September onwards. And as a result, the cost to us has been, we have lost 18 months, and it has cost us 100,000 roughly in legal fees and making representations, which is regrettable. We've ended up with the same decision. It means it's delayed the implementation and it's cost us quite a bit of money, and we end up with the same conclusion. So it seems a bit of a strange system, and it's very regrettable that the Secretary of State should have called it in. It would be nice if councils were given the power to make their own decisions. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. How novel it is that local authorities and local people should be empowered to make local decisions. It's almost as if we actually know our communities and what works here better than central government, isn't it? Right. Any questions for Ruth on the strategic planning document and the report? Nope, seeing no questions. I take it that you're proposing. So could I have a seconder, please? Yep, Councillor Allen. Excellent. And any debate? Nope, no debate. Could we move to a vote, please? The recommendations to note. Thank you.
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you very much. This brings us on to item number 11, which is the Council Delivery Plan Q3 update for 23-24 and the projects for 2024-2025. We have a referral from Overview and Scrutiny on this. Can I invite the Vice Chair, Councillor Val Bryant, to present the referral, please?
Thank you, Chair. The report was considered by Overview and Scrutiny Committee at the meeting held on the 12th of March 2024. We'd like to recommend to Cabinet, one, that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee noted the progress against council projects as set out in the Council Delivery Plan Appendix A, including changes to milestones, performance indicators and risks, and makes recommendations and comments to Cabinet. Two, that Overview and Scrutiny Committee identified any projects which they would like to receive a more detailed update. And three, that Overview and Scrutiny Committee recommended to Cabinet the scope of 24-25 Council Delivery Plan as detailed in paragraphs 8.8 to 8.10. The Controls, Risk and Performance Manager, Rachel Cooper, presented the report and answered questions. We had a large number of questions, some of which have been sent in advance, which I think the officers found really, really helpful, which you've got, most of which you've got details in your pack. Two things I'd like to bring to your attention. First of all, members of the committee had questions around the reduction of projects. So from now on, the moderation process will reduce the number of projects from 27 to between 11 and 14, which generally is thought to be a very good thing because 27 was unyieldy. And we can look at the 11 to 14 in greater depth. But the question was how we continue to be knowledgeable about the other 13, 14 projects which are not going to be reported on in the delivery plan, to make sure that, in fact, they work in the background, but how to retain that knowledge for members. So that's a question that's not been answered yet. Secondly, there were comments about the tool that's used for monitoring the projects. We use Pentana and IdeaGen, and we decided that it was essential that certainly members of Overview and Scrutiny had training and other members might want training, because a lot of the questions that members are asking, in fact, if they could use the tool themselves, which is available online and to use, they could drill down and find the answers themselves as well in great detail. So that we would like to have a video training which we can follow and refollow and forget the first time, which community services are considering doing, and also having specific specialist training just before Overview and Scrutiny meetings in the course of next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bryan. I think that the point around training and using Pentana is excellent. And I know that in the past we've done that for members of Finance, Audit and Risk. So it absolutely makes sense for scrutiny members to be able to look into that as well. So I'm hoping that committee services are on top of that. Yes, they are. Excellent. Very good. And on the points around the projects that aren't sitting within the council delivery plan, each of our service directorates and areas that they manage have their own internal service plans and work programs. And those projects that aren't on the main council delivery plan because the resourcing level isn't there, so that they're not at that point where they can be progressed in that space, are still going to be worked on in the background and will be on the service director's work plans. So if scrutiny wants to see those, to keep tabs on what's happening, scrutiny is free, as it has done in the past, to invite the service directors and cabinet members covering relevant portfolios in to examine the work programs and see how things are going, and make sure that everything within the departments is running on track, as well as the main council delivery plan. So that's absolutely a mechanism that's been used in the past quite effectively, I think, and I'm sure colleagues would be happy to engage with moving forwards. Right. So any questions for Councillor Bryant on the scrutiny referral? No. Okay, great. In that case, I shall pass over to Councillor Albert to present the main report.
Cheers, thanks. Thanks, Chair. I mean, if I could just sort of start on those last points, and then obviously again, as always, thank Scrutiny for the work they've done on this, and indeed, in fairness to say, I think it was very much coming from the views of the Scrutiny Committee some months ago now, that actually, I think rightly tasked us with looking at the prioritisation of the projects within the council delivery plan, and I think they were valuable suggestions, and I think the work that's gone on with the Ian Cooper and his team and Rachel and so on, actually in getting the council delivery plan to where it is, I think very much comes from the considerations that that Scrutiny made and the suggestions they made some months ago. What I would say, however, is I do think that, I mean, where I would slightly push back on our Scrutiny colleagues is that I'm certainly aware that Pentana training has been offered to both Finance and Scrutiny Committee on several occasions. There hasn't always been the best of take up for that. People have been given logins, passwords, told where to find it, and people haven't always looked at that. But we should continue to persist with that, and it's absolutely right that the Scrutiny colleagues, the current ones, and obviously whatever happens after the elections, have access to the information to be able to do their job properly, and Pentana is the right source of information where they can go, and as Val says, they can go and check that information. So yeah, completely support the idea of making sure we've got that training there, and we'll have no doubt a number of new Scrutiny members maybe after the elections, where we'll need to go through that same process again. I think the other thing is that certainly in relation to the projects, and I think to pick up what Elizabeth has said. I mean, certainly when in the past, when I was on Scrutiny, and I think when Elizabeth was on Scrutiny, we regularly used to call in service directors and look at service director work plans, and that may well be something that is important for Scrutiny to think about in the new civic year, because clearly, if you want that more in-depth analysis of things that sit below that top level of the main sort of dashboard, the main council delivery plan, and if Scrutiny feels they have the time to do that, then that clearly is the right way forward in calling in the relevant service director and an executive member to look at that work plan where they feel that it's more, or indeed ask for if they've got a particular interest in a project to ask for that to come to the relevance of the committee. So I think there is an opportunity there for looking at things that sit below the main council delivery plan, but I do think having the council delivery plan in the form it's now in enables us, I think, to assess how the council is doing and how the council is performing, and that clearly I think will be something that we can continue to work on. So value the working with our Scrutiny colleagues on that. I mean, obviously to cover really just perhaps the report, say Appendix A sets out the current position on the council delivery plan projects, and indeed it generally reflects updates at just before the end of February. So it's very much a moving target. A couple of further updates. The call for tenders on the waste and street cleansing contract have now gone out, with bids to come back by the 25th of March. On round 2 of the local authority housing fund, 3 of the properties, including the one temporary accommodation property, have been delivered by Settle, still hoping that they can deliver the last one by the end of March, but should be scoped still to be eligible for the grant if the deadline is slightly missed. Round 3 of the local authority housing fund has been announced. The initial allocations have been made to those authorities facing the highest pressures. We did not get an allocation on that basis. However, we can bid for an allocation of any funds that are not taken up. The criteria have been changed from the previous 2 rounds, so there may be less available for distribution, but it's still recommended that we see what local registered providers could deliver and do a bid on that basis. Therefore, I'd like to propose that we add the following recommendations to this report: that 2.3, that the Cabinet notes the update on the local authority housing fund and wishes to support round 3 of the scheme if it can, and 2.4, that the Cabinet delegates to the Service Director of Housing and Environmental Health and the Service Director of Resources, in consultation with the Executive Member for Housing and the Executive Member for Finance and IT, the final decision on submission of the validation form. Paragraph 8.7 to 8.11 of the report, and in particular Table 1, sets out the intended projects for the Council Delivery Plan for 24-25. The starting point for this was the recommendation, as I mentioned earlier, by overview and scrutiny, that we develop that better way to prioritise. And that clearly, as we said just now, has resulted in the fewer projects. Still work to continue, but those, but those projects on the Council Delivery Plan will be our priority. But as I say, I think it's important, that in getting to, to where we've got to, I think having that prioritization is the right way forward. I will ask if, with the chair's agreement, Councillor Hosky's perhaps to give just a brief update that he gave to the Hitching Committee on where we are on Churchgate. I think that would be quite valuable. And then paragraph 8.10 details our plans in relation to performance indicators for the next year. The aim is to have a range of indicators that help tell us how the council overall is performing. We'll look at how that works alongside any current measures that are reported, like customer service measures, resident surveys and so on, but very much keen to work with scrutiny colleagues again on getting the right kind of performance sort of indicators, and indeed obviously Cabinet colleagues, so we've got something there that is a really important and useful tool so we can actually measure how we're doing for our performance as a council in the coming financial year. So, Chair, with that, and obviously with those additional recommendations, I'd like to move the report. And as I say, obviously with your indulgence, I'll ask the Councillor Hoskins maybe just to report where we are on Churchgate as well during the course of the debate.
Great. Thank you very much. Before we take questions for Councillor Albert, I think it makes sense to bring Councillor Hoskins in, and then I'll take questions for both if there are any. So over to you.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Ian, for that. I'm happy to provide an update on this because it's such a big project for us. There are 2 distinct strands to Churchgate. There's the ongoing day-to-day management and maintenance, and of course there's the regeneration project. We're still working to our timetable, the detailed work programme that was created alongside our consultants, Lambert Smith Hampton, to guide us through the early stages. Phase 1 of that has recently been completed and focuses on the due diligence work surrounding the shopping centre itself and the wider area. Things like review of ownership, planning policy overview, and the market overview in relation to residential, leisure, investment and retail. Really what we're doing at the moment, we've recently appointed master planners, David Leonard, is heading towards the UK Real Estate Investment and Infrastructure Forum, which is held between the 21st and the 23rd of May in Leeds. And the purpose is that we're attending that as part of the overall Hertfordshire stand, if you like, to perhaps find out what interest there might be in the investment. So it's an investment prospectus that's being worked on that will be taken to UK REIF to see what the interest is, and then to come back and move on from that once we've established that. So really the end of May is our next, if you like, staging post in this whole project. But I'm happy to take any more questions on that. I won't read through the whole thing because it's extensive.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Does anyone have questions for Councillor Albert or Councillor Hoskins? No, I'm not seeing any questions indicated. So Councillor Albert has proposed the recommendations plus the additional 2, which we've made a note of. And I have a seconder, please. Yeah, Councillor Willoughby. Okay, any debate on this, colleagues? Nope, I'm seeing no one indicate. Could we have a vote, please?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And that moves us on to item number 12, which is the third quarter investment strategy, capital and treasury review 23-24. There is also a referral from Finance, Audit and Risk, which accompanies this. Unfortunately, Councillor Nolan was unable to chair the meeting due to a run-in with a tree that the County Council didn't sort out. And the Vice Chair wasn't present. And unfortunately, Councillor Plater isn't available to step in as he did on the evening to present the referral for us. So I'm hoping colleagues have taken the time to read the referral that we've received from FAR on both this item and the next item as well. Councillor Albert, would you like to present your report, please?
Just thanks, Chair. I think it could be reasonably sort of brief on these ones. I mean, a lot of these things that we talked about as part, obviously, of our, budget meeting full council in February, and these obviously emphasise where we are in up to the third quarter. There were schemes that have slipped into the next year, 24-25. The slippage reasons and values are highlighted in Table 2 of the report. Table 3 of the report noted the change of the Howard Park kiosk scheme, which was approved by full council in February, and I hope that's welcome to colleagues. The funding for the capital programme was stated in Table 4 of the report and included capital receipts. Section 106 money and other grants and contributions, there was no drawdown funding. The splits of investments is highlighted in paragraph 8.11 with the individual investment details in paragraph 8.12. The investments are low risk and pay good yields, and due to the rates being offered, our surplus cash investments are weighted towards other local authorities, but very much with the provisos and caveats I made at the full council meeting about obviously making sure that we are, obviously careful and minded about obviously the financial situation that we know other local authorities are experiencing. But this money is safe, and it's certainly a good investment for us. There are 4 recommendations in front of you, colleagues. On the report, and I really just like to move those 4 recommendations on block.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Councillor Albert? No, seeing no one indicate, Councillor Albert's moved the recommendations. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Hoskins, any debate? No, could we have a vote, please?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you very much. That brings us on to item number 13, which is the third quarter revenue budget monitoring 23-24. As indicated previously, we had the referral from FAR on this as well. Councillor Albert, would you like to present your report?
Again, thanks, Chair. The revenue budget movement at the end of December 23 is highlighted in Table 3 of the report. There were various staff underspends that related to unfilled roles. Part of the underspend had been used for temporary staff, and for some of the remaining had been requested to be carried over into later years. And certainly resourcing was a subject, I think, of discussion at FAR, and clearly was something that we concentrated on in looking at how we were proposing to deal with looking the ways that we can help to resource our council when we looked at our budget proposals last month. You'll note there, and again with your indulgence, Chair, that there has been an increase in fly tipping, and this had put pressure on the budget. And I'm going to obviously, with your indulgence, ask. I think obviously we've got Councillor Allen that will hopefully be able to respond to that, and to obviously what the council is specifically doing in relation to fly tipping. The details and savings of the carried forward budget were indicated in Table 3 of the report, and the corporate financial health indicators are detailed in Table 4 of the report, and this highlighted 4 red indicators and 2 green indicators. It was unlikely that these would change before year end. So there's again obviously a number of sort of recommendations in front of you, colleagues. Three key recommendations that I'd like to formally to move. But again, obviously we're indulgent. Certainly I'm more than happy if you are, Chair. Obviously we can bring in sort of Councillor Allen. I think we possibly still have Jeanette Loudon with us to talk about sort of fly tipping, which again I think is an important subject, and obviously making sure that we're, I think, colleagues here and indeed obviously anyone listening are aware of what we are doing around that important subject of fly tipping.
Thank you very much, Councillor Albert. Councillor Allen, did you want to add anything on the fly tipping points?
Yeah, just that we're always taking a proactive approach tackling fly tipping. We've opted for the maximum penalty when prosecuting those that we catch fly tipping. We're looking at ways to stop the temptation by maybe having better bin options or changing up there being bins at all in lay-bys, which just seem to invite fly tipping and then being completely abused and not be used as the rest stop and assistance to drivers, of which they were always intended. I'm happy to pass over to Jeanette, who will be able to go into a bit more detail in the process of which we've been working to help tackle fly tipping.
Hello, thank you, Chair. Yes, just to expand on what Councillor Allen's just been saying, we are sharing posts that are being put out nationwide by the National Highways Agency, which is based on a big campaign around littering on our highways. The main focus point of that is nice little cuddly furry animals. I think there's a rabbit and a squirrel, and they're shocked to look at the amount of litter that has been left on our roads within the districts. So the main theme behind that is that there's lots of small animals that are killed on our highways and roads due to the fact of the amount of litter that is being dropped, because it attracts litter and then it entices small furry creatures to the roadside and to their ultimate death. So we're supporting that campaign, and we are sharing various comms across our social media posts and portals. Us specifically, we work closely with our colleagues in the community safety team. We share information on where we have hotspots of littering and fly tips, and we work closely with them in what we can do to try and issue, or the community safety team to issue FPNs where necessary, where it is a continued problem. Where we have fly tipping or dumped bagged waste around litter bins, the shared waste team will try and produce a generic or issue a generic letter to those residents in the vicinity of that litter bin to make them aware in the first instance that we are aware that there is an issue, and we are looking at trying to tackle that. So it's a bit of a deterrent to try and deter people from continuing to misuse the litter bins in the district. Councillor Allen just did mention about the lay-bys. We are looking at doing a trial. Obviously we're a shared waste team, so initially in East Herts, where we do have some larger issues with a couple of lay-bys on the A120 and A10, and if that's successful, we'll look at expanding that obviously into areas in the north where we're experiencing similar but not as bad issues. So we are looking at removing and reducing the number of litter bins in specific lay-bys. We'll be monitoring the lay-bys for any additional waste, or hopefully a reduction in waste, any behavioural change that encourages in the use of those lay-bys. We've also worked with our comms team, so we're drafting up some signage to be placed in those lay-bys and some signage stickers to go onto the litter bins, and we're hashtagging that hashtag stop the drop to try and prevent, again, the littering problem within the area. Thank you, Chair.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Councillor Albert or Councillor Allen on those points? Nope. I'm seeing nobody indicate. Councillor Albert's proposed the recommendations. Do I have a seconder? Yeah, Councillor Allen. Lovely. I shall move us into the debate then. Do colleagues have any points they wish to raise in the debate, or anyone who further wants to explain any slippage in their particular areas? Nope. Right. Great. Can we move on to a vote then, please?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Great, thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the agenda then, and the close of the last Cabinet meeting of this civic year. So thank you very much, colleagues, for your time and for the work that you've put in over the last year. And I'm sure I'll be seeing most of you certainly at full council in April, and probably out on the doorstep in May. Good luck and see you soon.